High street shopping used to be a completely different experience. For decades, our towns and cities were filled with stores that were part of everyday life, woven into our daily routines. You might have been grabbing the latest single from Our Price, stocking up on bargains at Kwik Save, renting a film from Blockbuster, or heading into Woolworths for a little bit of everything. These shops played a huge role in British culture. But just like so many classic TV shows covered here on the channel, a lot of these high street staples have sadly disappeared. Some collapsed under the weight of competition, others were taken over by bigger brands, and a few just couldn't adapt to the rise of online shopping. Whatever the reason though, their closures left behind memories, traditions, and a bit of the charm that made our high streets and shopping centres feel special. In this video, we're going to take a look back at some of the most loved UK shops and stores that no longer exist that had something unique that people still miss to this day. This is not a definitive list, and I'm sure you'll have your own suggestions in the comments, but I've picked out a few that really capture the spirit of shopping in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. If you grew up browsing these aisles, you'll know exactly why so many of us today still look back at them fondly. Before we get started, please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content here on the channel. Your support really helps keep these nostalgic deep dives coming. Let's start our journey down memory lane with the world of electricals and a store that once ruled the UK high street, Dixons. Founded in 1937, originally as a photography studio, Dixons became one of the biggest names around. And for decades it was the go-to place if you needed a new TV, camera, stereo system, or even just some blank VHS tapes. Walking into a Dixons store in the 80s and 90s felt like stepping into the future. Rows of shiny gadgets and walls of televisions all playing at once. As a kid, this was one of my favorite shops to wander around in, dreaming of all the amazing tech I wanted to buy. Dixons' demise stems from its 1984 acquisition of Currys. The two brands continued as separate entities for the next 20 or so years before, in April 2006, Dixons announced the suspension of its UK stores. While Currys is still thriving today, the Dixons brand itself lives on only in memory, remembered fondly as the place where many of us first experienced the magic of modern technology.
Dixons. 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 Dixons.
No discussion about iconic electrical retailers would be complete without mentioning the giant that was Comet. Starting its life in 1933 as a battery charging business, they eventually expanded into renting out radios before opening their first superstore in Hull in 1968. From there, Comet became a British institution, the only place to go if you needed a new home appliance. Comet superstores had a very distinct feel. They were usually located in big retail parks with rows of gleaming appliances and aisles packed with stereos, microwaves, and stacks of boxed up televisions. It wasn't quite as glitzy as some of the other electrical stores on the high street, but it had that warehouse vibe that made it feel like you were walking into the future of home living. I'm sure plenty of people still remember the excitement of picking up a brand new TV or a computer from Comet, and the slightly daunting experience of navigating all the technical options at a time when electricals felt both exciting and maybe a bit complicated. I have a very distinct memory of spending an entire afternoon with my family in Comet as they looked for a whole bunch of new appliances for our kitchen, and wandering the aisles, particularly the gaming section, was so enjoyable. Sadly, like so many others, Comet couldn't survive the rise of online shopping, growing competition, and changes in consumer spending habits, and after years of financial struggles, the company went into administration in 2012, closing all of its stores and putting an end to nearly 80 years of trading. Interestingly, however, it appears that the Comet brand is going to be making a comeback in late 2025, after being purchased by online marketplace OnBuy. Next up is quite possibly the greatest store ever, Toys R Us. A subsidiary of its American counterpart, the first UK Toys R Us store opened in 1985 and eventually grew to over 100 stores all across the country. Unfortunately, the company entered liquidation in late 2017 and closed all stores within the next few months, bringing an end to one of the most iconic toy shops in UK history. Walking into Toys R Us as a kid was like stepping into another world. The sheer size of the stores was overwhelming, with what seemed like endless aisles stacked high with toys, games, bikes, and video games. There was nothing quite like running down those long aisles, eyes wide with excitement at the mountains of action figures, board games, Lego sets, and dolls, and for many of us, Toys R Us was the kind of place where you could lose yourself for hours, imagining everything you wanted to play with. What made Toys R Us so special was the atmosphere. The bright colors, the catchy jingle, Geoffrey the giraffe, it all added to the experience. For kids of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, a trip to Toys R Us was the ultimate treat, and I think that's why so many people feel such strong nostalgia for it today. Toys R Us actually made a revival in the UK in 2021, opening a number of branded concessions inside WH Smith and TG Jones stores. Hopefully one day we'll see the return of the gigantic Toys R Us Megastores that defined so many of our childhoods.
There's a magical place, we're on our way there, with toys in the millions all under one roof. It's called Toys R Us.
From Sega, the Mega Drive, with Sonic the Hedgehog game, 16-bit console which plays over 100 exciting high-tech games with high-quality graphics. Toys R Us price $126.94.
There's millions, says Jeffrey, all under one roof. It's called Toys R Us, Toys R Us, Toys R Us.
No trip down retail memory lane would be complete without mentioning Virgin Megastores, the place where music, movies, video games, and culture collided. Founded by Richard Branson in the 1970s, the first store was opened on Oxford Street, and over the following decades, Virgin Megastores became a cultural landmark for anyone who loved music, film, or gaming. Stepping inside a Virgin Megastore felt electric. There was definitely a certain buzz about the place. There were racks upon racks of CDs, shelves stacked high with movies, whole sections dedicated to vinyl, posters of the biggest bands on the walls, and demo stations where you could listen to the latest albums or play the newest video games. It was a paradise for browsing and a place where you could happily spend hours exploring. The bold branding of Virgin Megastores, the loud music, and the lively atmosphere absolutely captured the spirit of the Virgin brand. And for many people, including myself, their first big music purchase happened in a Virgin Megastore. For me, it was Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, which was the first album I ever purchased myself. Today, while the Virgin brand continues to be very successful in the spaces of air travel, hospitality, media, and entertainment, the Megastores only continue to operate in the Middle East and North Africa, with all UK stores closing in the late 2000s. When it comes to supermarkets, the 1990s offered far more choice than today, and one store I remember particularly well is Kwik Save. Founded in North Wales in 1959, Kwik Save quickly expanded throughout the UK and became a household name, especially during the 80s and 90s. Known for its no-frills approach, it was the place to go if you wanted to stretch your weekly shopping budget a little further. And for many families, Kwik Save was an essential part of life, offering affordable groceries at a time when every penny mattered. The brand began to struggle in the early 2000s and eventually entered administration in 2007, but it did make a small comeback a few years later as a convenience store brand under new owners, Cost Cutters.
Oi! What you got in your basket then?
I've got tea, coffee, bread, everything I really need.
Like, fine luxury chocolates. Do you really need fine luxury chocolates?
No, not really. But with the money we saved on other stuff, why not treat ourselves?
Next up is BHS, or British Home Stores, a store that was a staple for families across the UK for decades. Founded in 1928, BHS became known for offering a mix of clothing, homeware, and even small electricals all under one roof, and grew to be one of the UK's largest department store chains. The company was actually founded by a group of American entrepreneurs who opened the first store in Brixton, London in 1928, and for many families it was a one-stop shop for all household goods. It was easy to see why it became such a beloved high street name. Unfortunately, BHS struggled to keep up with changing shopping habits, competition from larger department stores, and the rise of online retail, and in 2016, after financial difficulties and ownership changes, the company went into administration and all UK stores were closed, leaving behind a high street that felt a little emptier without it. The brand does continue to exist in some form, however. BHS.com, which is being used under license from owners Almaya Group by Lightcraft Group Limited, is being used to sell their range of lighting products, and as of the creation of this video, Almaya Group actually operates one physical British Home Stores location in the Landmark Mall in Doha, Qatar. One name that will spring to everyone's mind when you mention lost giants of the high street is Blockbuster. For anyone who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, a trip to Blockbuster was a Friday night tradition. Founded in the US in 1985 and arriving in the UK just 4 years later, Blockbuster quickly became the go-to place for families looking for the weekend's entertainment. There was nothing quite like browsing the aisles at Blockbuster, checking out the wall of new releases and debating with your family or friends over which movies to rent. Rows upon rows of VHS tapes and later DVDs and video games lined the shelves, each one holding the promise of a perfect night in. And of course, no trip to Blockbuster would be complete without grabbing some snacks and fizzy drinks to enjoy with your rentals. The best part though was the ritual of it all. A Friday night trip to Blockbuster was the highlight of the week. Picking out films, maybe sneaking in a game rental for the PlayStation or Nintendo, and then heading back home to watch and enjoy together. It was about the experience, the excitement of bringing that blue and yellow case home knowing you had something really special to enjoy. We didn't know it at the time, but those memories would become priceless once the stores were no more. As streaming services and online rentals slowly eroded Blockbuster's place on the high street, by the early 2010s the stores began closing one by one, and by late 2013 the last of the UK stores shut their doors for good, marking the end of an era. Even now though, the name Blockbuster instantly brings back memories of family nights in and sleepovers, and a time when watching a film meant making a trip out of it, not just scrolling endlessly on a streaming service with so much choice that you don't even know what to watch. Interestingly, there is still one privately owned franchised Blockbuster left in the world, located in Bend, Oregon. Known colloquially as the last Blockbuster, it's estimated that about 80% of the store's income actually comes from selling Blockbuster-themed merchandise. I don't know about you, but I'd love to one day make a trip to this last remaining Blockbuster just to experience its magic one last time. And finally, you didn't think I was going to forget this one, did you? It's the mighty Woolworths, a store that was as much a part of British childhoods as school and Saturday morning TV. Woolworths arrived in the UK in 1909 and over the decades grew into a high street institution. You could pick up sweets, toys, stationery, household items, music, video games, movies, DIY products, and clothing, among many other things. But what really set Woolworths apart was its charm. It had that unique ability to feel both everyday and magical at the same time. I have a lot of fond memories of browsing the shelves in Woolworths. In particular, I remember my grandfather buying me a Pokemon base set booster box at the height of the Pokemon craze, from which I pulled a lot of amazing cards, and many a time spending my birthday and Christmas money in Woolworths, bringing home tons of great stuff. It really was a superb store and a place I never got bored of visiting. And of course, we can't forget the incredible pick and mix section, which was the highlight of any visit. But overall, Woolworths was a fantastic high street attraction and a place where you could spend a whole afternoon wandering the aisles. The store had a friendly, welcoming atmosphere that made every visit feel special, whether it was a quick errand with your parents or a weekend treat. There were also larger out-of-town superstores called Big W that operated between 1998 and 2004, which stocked basically everything you could imagine. Woolworths really was woven into the fabric of everyday life in Britain, so it's no wonder so many of us have fond memories of the excitement of exploring its aisles. It's no exaggeration to say that Woolworths helped define the high street experience for generations of Brits. Sadly, Woolworths couldn't survive the changing retail landscape and eventually entered administration in late 2008, with all stores closed by January 2009. There have been a few hoaxes in recent years suggesting that the brand was going to make a comeback, including a student who created the Twitter account at UK Woolworths announcing the shop's return to UK high streets, although we later learned that he did this as an experiment to test brand loyalty in the UK. At the time of the release of this video, there are no concrete plans for the store's return, but I'm sure we can all agree that it would be great to have this titan of retail back on our high streets someday in the future. So there we go, those are just some of the high street stores we've loved and then lost over the years. Which one do you miss the most, and are there any other favourites you think I should cover in a future video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're enjoying the content here on the channel, and I'll see you again in the next video.